Sāngye chētāng tsāgye chōnāṃ tāṃ chāngchū pātō nāni gyāsō chē dāgye chēsō gyēvē sēnā kye tōlā pēnchirē sāngye chūpa shō sāngye chētāng tsāgye chōnāṃ chāngchū pātō nāni gyāsō chē dāgye chēsō gyēvē sēnā kye tōlā pēnchirē sāngye chūpa shō sāngye chētāng tsāgye chōnāṃ Jojo Bardo Nani Gaso Jen Dage Denso Gibe Sonami Dola Benjere Sangen Jokora Shu Zanje Bege Joshen Mendo Dama Jira Ninje Nide Gemban Sangye Jindo Mide Biwaye Jogu Namda Shenla Jebara Shu Yi Damang Guru Rana Medala Dayami. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning. Yeah. Oh yeah. So like you shall set the pure motivation, which is to attain enlightenment for the sake of ultimate beings. And now we will begin the actual teaching, which is the words of my perfect master. And we have been covering the chapter on following the teacher or the spiritual friend. So we have, according to the text, we have one more story left. So shall we continue with the story, or shall we jump to the next chapter? Have you decided?
What would you like to do, Rinpoche?
I can go with the story a little bit. Instead of going it very thoroughly, we can just go through the story a little bit, and then we can, if we have time, we can jump to the next chapter.
Okay, thank you, Rinpoche. That's perfect.
All right. So basically, the stories are about. It's similar to the ones that we have talked about last week and the week before that. So it's basically how different masters from ancient times have been following their masters through so much hardships, difficulties. They still follow their master despite all the difficulties and hardships. And this is tells us how to follow our teacher, emulating the spiritual friend to the best of our abilities. Now we talked about the stories of Master, the ever weeping Bodhisattva. Then we talk about the Naropa and Telopa story, and usually what comes next is the story of the Milarepa. And many of you may have already heard about the story of Milarepa. So Telopa and the ever weeping Bodhisattva, all these are stories from Tibet, from India. Then Milarepa is a master from Tibet, because the text is actually written in Tibetan, so this is a story that is most popular and very central to the Tibetan sentiment. And I believe that there are many other stories like that in your own histories, whether it's in Vietnamese or in Chinese or in other cultures. You also have similar great masters. So I don't have those stories, but the one that is very popular in Tibet and one that is actually outlined in the text is that of the Milarepa. So he's a Tibetan master. Mm. Then we will speak a little bit about that one first. Yeah. So the Milarepa story, when we were small, we were told the story by our parents. Then our teachers also told us the story about Milarepa. And since it's a very popular story, it's kind of like related to the folklore as well. So many of the lay people also know the story of Milarepa. Those who have not studied the Dharma, they know the story of Milarepa because it's very popular, and also it's kind of related to the uh, the conditions and the situations of Tibetans at that time, and it's very much like there's a lot of actions in there. So there was one when after Milarepa became enlightened, and he has many students followed him. One of the students asked him to tell his story. So um, it's called 100,000 Ballads of Milarepa, or 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. So basically, there's a very thick book which has a lot of which has his biography as well as many of his songs, his spiritual songs called ballads. Um, so in that book, Milarepa, mm, in that book, Milarepa, it was actually told in the as a in an audience. He was speaking to his students. So basically, they asked him about his story, to tell him that his life story, and he said, "My life story is filled with my life story is very interesting. It is filled with laughter. It's filled with tears. It's filled with so many emotions." And basically, because of very much because of that very reason, it become a very popular kind of a, even though it's not a folklore, it kind of was considered as folklore, the Milarepa story, because there were stories of like revenge, fighting, killing people, and then there were stories of repenting, um, lots of uh, what do you, suppression, like abuse of power, like a very, very, very powerful drama. So there's a lot of abuse of power, manipulation, uh, then uh, lots of action, lots of fighting, and so many. Then lots of repentance, a sad story, and then of course when you come to the lower stages of the uh, Milarepa's life, there are a lot of laughter as well. So many things to laugh about. So basically, it's a very active kind of story, and therefore it's very popular. So when you have time, maybe it will. If you read the full story of Milarepa, it will be very interesting. Mm. So the story starts with something in the basically Milarepa's parents were very wealthy. He was born in a very wealthy family, and then later on, I think when he was about 6 years old, 6 or something, very young age, his father passed away. So on his deathbed, the father entrusted all the responsibilities to the uncle, to his brother, which is Milarepa's uncle and aunt. because I think because at that time the Tibetan society itself is a kind of a patriarchal society, and so usually there should be a male who should look after the family, you know. In any case, even though his wife is there, the father entrusted all his all the responsibilities, everything um, to the uncle, to his brother, and his brother seems to be a very nice person, and basically all the wealth and all the responsibilities were entrusted to the brother. But and then he passed away, he died, and then he was supposed to give all the responsibilities, everything back to the son when he comes of age, I think like 19 or something. But what happened was the moment, like just the day after uh, his brother passed away, Milarepa's father passed away, the uncle actually kicked out the mother and Milarepa. So Milarepa has one sister. So Milarepa and the sister and the mother. So the three of them were kicked out of their own house, and they were like on the outskirts of the village. There is a small farm, very small, very very small farm, and there is like a cowshed, a hut, small hut there. So they were sent to that. They had to live in that hut. Um, so they actually they were kicked out of the house. They had nothing. The uncle and aunt gave them nothing. Milarepa's mother, from her own mother's side, like from the Milarepa's mother, from her side, from her parents' side, she used to have a small farm, small land. So they settled there, out on the outskirts of the village. And basically, they start farming and have a very small land. And when Milarepa came of age, around 19 or something, then they went to take the land back, to take their property back, as even though they were treated very badly for the last 10 years or so. Um, of course, they were kicked out of the house, but then they have to work in the family farm, family field. And so they were made to work very hard. They were very, very much, they abused their power and, you know, they had a very difficult life. And when Milarepa came of age, Milarepa's mom, went the, to the uncle's place, which is their own family, their own house, and then asked for the return of the property. And that time, the uncle. So what they did was they set up a very large gathering. So they saved everything they could, and they set up a large gathering, like a feast, and invited all the village, all the people from the village to attend the gathering, to attend the feast, because they cannot trust the uncle, so, because the uncle has been mistreating the family very badly for the last 10 years or so. So, and if she was to talk directly with the uncle, then there will be there will be of no use. So therefore, she invited all the villagers, and then she asked um, them for a feast. She invited them for a feast, and in the feast, she asked uncle to give the land back, to give the property back to Milarepa, because he's now coming of age. And at that time, his name is not Milarepa, his name is Tebaga. Tebaga means the one which is pleasant to hear, so nice to hear. That's his name. So now Tebaga has come of age. Now please return the property back to me. And at that time, the uncle became very angry, and uncle threw the cup to the ground, and then scolded Milarepa, Tobaga, Milarepa, their family and everyone in front of all the villagers, and then told them that I took care of you for the last 15 years, so many years, and after your father died, there is nothing left, and I took care of your family for all this time. But then you still are so ungrateful, and now you are asking to take back the land. How dare you do that? And then because uncle is now has all the wealth that Milarepa's father has, so he's very powerful, he's very rich, so he has a lot of henchmen, right? Like bodyguards and everything. So they kicked out Milarepa, his mom, and everyone. Um, and all the villagers, because they kind of like stood powerless, so they can't do anything, so they just looked, and some of them actually sided with uncle and like that. So basically Milarepa was very much put into shame and kicked out and all that. And then Milarepa's mom, so they returned to their home, and they're crying and you know so sad and everything. And then Minerva's mom decided now this is the time to take revenge, and we should take revenge by you should go if you really love me as your my son, if you really love me as a mother, then there's only the only mission in your life is to take revenge to uncle and aunt and all the villagers who stood by and did nothing to stand by. They did not stand by the truth. They did not stand by us. So we have to take revenge on them. So if you really love me, that is your only goal in life. And to do that, you will have to go and you have to go and learn black magic, because they have nothing else. They don't have the support because they don't have the wealth, so they don't have the support from the population, from the people, and nothing. So the only way, the last resort, is to go through black magic. So she told him to go and learn black magic, and Milarepa went on to many different teachers, and he studied very well. It's a very long story. I'm just summing it up. So he studied all the the most wicked of all the black magic, and then he came back and cast a spell on the village, and all the corpse died, and the house where uncle and aunt were living, the houses, or they were having the marriage of uncle, the the son of the uncle, so basically their own relative. So they're having a wedding by that time. So Milarepa went to study the black magic. So it took a long time, couple like a year or so. So by that time, uncle's son is getting married, and they're having a gathering and feast there. So Milarepa went on to cast spells of black magic to destroy the corpse, and to destroy the house where um, the all the villagers were having a feast in the large hall of uncle's house, which is his own house basically. And so they killed, he killed a lot of people. Um, Uncle and aunt were spared, but I mean many other people died, and all the corpses died, and people were really devastated. And after he did that, Milarepa's mom was very happy, and she said, "I'm so happy that you did as what I told you. But now, because you killed so many people and you did so many negative actions, you also have to repent those things. You have to get rid of. If you do not purify your negativities, then you will be born in hell. So you must go and practice the Dharma." And that's how Milarepa went to in search of his teacher, Marpa. Oh yeah, so this is the background story of you know what Milarepa did. Then of course he went to seek some other before he came to meet with Marpa, he went to meet many other lamas, some other very famous teachers. Then he went there, he studied from them, and he's very um, he worked very hard. He studied very hard, and because of that, he was able to learn a lot. But despite all the knowledge that he has, he is not able to gain any spiritual realization, any insights. And therefore, when he was giving spiritual examinations, when you have to report to your teacher what are the insights that you are having, what are the visions that you have, and all these after following the instructions. And no matter however closely he followed the instructions, he was not able to have any spiritual visualizations, spiritual realizations, etc. And then the Lama decided that his guru, his teacher, found out that what I taught you is the most authentic teaching, and it is and I taught it specifically following all the instructions in the text. So I've missed nothing. But despite all that, you're not able to gain any spiritual realization. So that means there is something wrong with you, in the sense of you have a very strong negative imprint from the past. And now for that, the only person who can actually get rid of all your negativities will be Marpa. And the moment Milarepa heard of the name Marpa, he started to shiver. His body started to shiver. I mean, the body hair started to raise, and he could feel something, even though he doesn't have any relation with, has not seen Marpa before, never heard of Marpa before, has not seen Marpa before, and still he felt like he has heard this name in the past. Very strong connection with that name. And then, of course, he decided to go look for Marpa, because that's what his current teacher advised him to do. So the only person who can alleviate you from your misery will be Marpa, and he is the most famous and most efficient teacher of all in Tibet. And so you should go to see Marpa. And Milarepa went to the place where Marpa was staying, and then he followed Marpa. So when he went to see Marpa, so he reached the place where Marpa was staying. Marpa also had a vision of Milarepa coming, and he was a very special student, and he knew that Milarepa, what Milarepa is destined to become. And so he told his wife, Marpa told his wife, that tomorrow a very special person is coming, so prepare the best of the best wine. And so he told her that. And early morning he went to the field, and he was plowing the field. And at the same time, Milarepa came looking for Marpa, and there was one gentleman plowing the field. And Milarepa went to the person and asked, "Do you know the place of Marpa, where the great?" Okay. So Marpa is a great master, great teacher, and he's a very scholarly person. And one of the reasons is because he went to India 2 or 3 times. And to go to India that time in general is very difficult. But he went 2 or 3 times. Each time went to the new land to study, and each time he come back, he bring a lot of Dharma, scripture, and etc. So because of that, he's very famous, very influential, like that. And so at that time when Milarepa first met with Marpa, he was actually just plowing the field. And that is what Marpa intended to do. So he was plowing the field, and he asked, "Where do you know where the great translator Marpa lives?" And Marpa said, I will show you where where he lives, but first you have to help me out." And Milarepa said, "Okay, sure. And why don't you plow the field for me, and then you go to after you plow the field, you finish plowing the field, you drink the wine that I kept here for you, and then come. I will show you where Marpa lives." And then Milarepa said, "Okay." And then Milarepa started to plow the field. He started the field very properly. And then after he finished plowing the field, he went. He started to look for the person who was farming, and he couldn't find him. But since the farmer told him to drink the wine as well, so he drank the wine to the fullest. So basically, he plowed all the field and he drank all the wine. And then he went to the farmer is nowhere to be seen, so he thought, okay, now maybe he's gone back, and then now I should go and look for Marpa. And when he went to the place, so Marpa's place is the largest place in the town, because Marpa he went to India and he had brought many many things from India. So he was also a very, very, very rich man as well. Marpa is considered uh, one of the richest person in um, Tibet at that time as well. So Marpa's house is the largest one and the biggest one. So there he went there, and they saw he went to the house where Marpa was staying, and without even looking at Marpa's face, without even looking at him, he just went into the uh, into the audience hall, into the living room, and started to do prostrations to the Lama, to the Guru, and asked him that I have done so many bad things, I have killed so many people, innocent people, and all that, and and all the reason was that to take revenge on my uncle and aunt, who have been very ungrateful, very unjust and unkind to me and my mom, my family. And when I did that, I have actually killed a lot of innocent people and bring harm to many people. And I have, I'm a sinner, so please help me out. And Marpa said, "Okay, boy, just raise your face and look at me." And when Milarepa was hesitant in the beginning, but then when he slowly looked at him, that was actually the same person who asked him to plow the field. And then Milarepa, kind of recognized him, and then he said, "Please help me." And Marpa said, I will teach you. I will, the I will show you the way. Then you just stay with me." Hmm? And then Marpa said, one thing that Marpa was very pleased about was that the Milarepa followed. So Marpa asked him, "Did you plow all the field?" "Yes, I did." "Did you drink all the wine?" "Yes, I did." And Marpa was very pleased with him. Of course, Marpa knew who he was and who he's going to become and everything. And he has that vision that some very special student is going to come. And now he's very happy because the student followed his instructions properly. One is to work and one is to enjoy, right? To plow the field is to work. So work-wise, he followed his teacher's instructions properly. And then to enjoy or to leisure. So um, to enjoy things, he followed the instructions properly. When he drink, he plowed the field properly and he drank the wine completely. So that means he worked as his teacher instructed him to do, and because of that, he was able to reap the benefit to the fullest completely. So, and Marpa was very pleased that he's very happy that you drink all the wine and you float the field completely. Oh yeah. Then Marpa said, if you stay with me, I can give you only one thing. If you want shelter, food and shelter, I can give you that. As I said, Marpa is very wealthy. But if you want Dharma, then I can give you Dharma. You cannot have both. And Milarepa thought, okay, food and shelter, I will, the only reason I came to follow Marpa is because of Dharma practice. So I will have Dharma, and food and shelter, I will find something outside. And then Milarepa Milarepa went to the Marpa gave some very basic kind of teaching, something that Milarepa is already familiar with, and then asked him to test him out. And when he tested the instructions, he was not able to get any realizations again. And then Marpa knew what is wrong. And of course, Marpa knew that Milarepa already told him all the stories, right? How, what all the negative things that he did and everything. So Marpa knew that Milarepa has a very, in Tibetan we say, very thick imprint. So the negative vibes, the negative imprint is very strong with Milarepa at that time. And so for that reason, no matter how hard he try, he's not able to he's not able to gain any realizations. So it's like if you have a very dirty cloth, you have to first wash it off. You cannot just, if you want to change the color, if you want to dye the cloth with another, if you want to dye it with another color, you first have to kind of wash it off. If it's very dirty, first you have to wash off the dirt, everything, the stains, remove all the stains, and then you can put new color on it, and then you can wash it off again. If you when everything is still very stained and very dirty, if you try to put new color on it, then it will become a very funny color. So basically, Milarepa is not ready to receive any higher form of teachings at all, and the very basic teaching he was not able to have any result. And then Marpa knew what he has to do. So Marpa told Milarepa that okay, before I begin, giving you the instructions, I have some work for you. And my son is coming of age, and he has to do some long-term retreat, and I need you to build a house for him. And the Milarepa, and you have to do it all by yourself. You don't ask nobody for help. It's your duty, it's your responsibility. And Milarepa very willingly said, of course, master, yes. And then he decided to build it's a 4 or 6 story house. It's a floor with multiple floors. It's a house with multiple floors. And then Marpa drew the blueprint for the house. So it was like a triangle shaped house. And when he was building the house, and it was like almost halfway through, then Marpa came to look for check the house. So it be couple months passed. Marpa didn't give any teaching, so he has to work and work and work, and no Dharma was given by that time. And then Marpa came and asked, how is it going? It's going very well. And to build a house, he brought the rocks and cut the rocks, and to build up the wall, he brought a big rock and cut the rock and built up the wall and everything. Cut the rock and turn it into a wall. And where did you get the rock? And Marpa said, oh, the rock is from this and that place, and some of the, your fellow students helped me to bring it here. And then Marpa was very angry. Didn't I tell you to, do it all by yourself? Now destroy everything, dismantle all the house, and bring everything to its original spot. Bring the rock to where you get it from. Bring the bring the earth from where you get it. Bring everything back, and then start everything fresh. And then now I need to change the plan. I need you to make a round house, right? So basically, he was asked to make a house that is triangle shaped, a house that is round shaped, and so many different shapes. And every time he is halfway through, a couple months later, Marpa comes and destroys it and says, "Oh, I must be drunk that time when I gave the direction. Nobody would live in such a funny looking house. Just destroy it." So basically, he has to work for a couple of years. No Dharma was ever given. And every time he asked the teacher to give a Dharma, he would say, "Do you have any offerings for me?" And of course, Milarepa has nothing to offer because he left home. He has nothing. All the money that they have, he gave to the teacher to study the black magic and everything. So he has nothing left. So he has no offering to make. So if you have no offering to make, I'm not going to give you any Dharma. Don't you ever dream about that. And for a couple of years, 3-4 years, he was not giving any teaching. He has to build the house for Marpa's son, and every time it's about to complete, he destroys it. So basically, he destroyed the house 3 times. And then the one last time, Marpa's Milarepa was, of course, going through lots of hardship. So he has to build that house all by himself. So he has to bring everything on his back. So all his back is all the wound, and there's a big hole in his back. And he couldn't show that to his master because his master just, would beat him up. And then he also doesn't want to show it to nobody. But then Marpa's wife came around, and she was very concerned. And she found out that he has this big hole on his back, and she put medicine on that. And she said, "Tomorrow my teacher is giving a big ceremony, big teaching. So you take this turquoise, so the necklace from me, and give this to the Lama, and then you receive the teaching." And then Milarepa was very happy to receive the teaching, to get an opportunity. So he went to the teaching, and the Lama was giving teaching to everybody. And so there are actually many other stories like this, but I'm just summing it up, summarizing it. So one time he went to the teaching without any offering, and the Lama found out, and he slapped him and kicked him out and beat him up. So this time he was being smart. So he brought the offering which Marpa's wife gave him, and he went to the teaching, and the Lama said, so the Lama was given a teaching, and Milarepa sat there, and Lama was teaching, and very happy, very joyous, very, very happy face. Then finally, all of a sudden, he saw Milarepa's face. He was all angry. "What the hell are you doing here? And please give me the Dharma teaching." Then Marpa said, "Do you have any offering? Do you have any gift for me?" And Milarepa, this time he's very smart. So he took out the necklace that Marpa's wife gave him, his master's wife gave him, and offered that to the Lama. And the Lama was very happy. "Oh, this is a very expensive necklace. I'm definitely going to give you teaching if you give me this. But where did you get this from? And how long have you been keeping it this for? If you gave me this before, I would give you teaching a long time ago." And Milarepa said, "This is actually given by your wife. she said, if I give this to you, you will give teaching. And so Yobai gave it to me. And when Marpa was very angry, and he slapped Milarepa on the face, and they kicked him out of the temple. So the temple is like two floors high. So Milarepa was like kicked out of the temple, and so he started falling from the stairs for the 2 floors. And Marpa said, "How dare you give me this? This is actually mine, because it belongs to my wife, and because she is my wife, her property is my property. So whatever she has is actually mine. Therefore, you cannot give me something that actually belongs to me and cheat me." And he was not giving any teaching. So basically, there are many stories like that. And then one time, and so because he didn't give any teaching, Marpa, Marpa's wife is really concerned. She's very worried, and she thought the boy will just die. And the Marpa's wife actually, forged a letter from the teacher. So make a fake letter from Marpa and put the Marpa's stamp on it. And the letter was addressed to another great Lama who is a student of Marpa, and he's considered to have the same qualities as Marpa himself. So he has all the transmission, all the lineage, everything Marpa has, he also has the same. So he sent this letter to that teacher, and the teacher was very happy. That teacher was very happy to receive the letter from his master, asking. So basically, the forged letter says, this guy Tevaga Milarepa, he's my best student, so give him all the instructions that I gave you. Signed Marpa. And he was very happy, and he gave all the teachings that Marpa has, because Marpa is not giving him any teaching. So he gave all the teachings to Milarepa, and then he asked him to practice. And so by that time, Milarepa is, gone, because Marpa's wife sent him away to his student, right? So then Marpa is very worried. Where's my student? Where's my best student? Where is my closest student? My son. And then the wife said, "Yeah, your wretched son, your useless student, whom you dislike and whom you have been mistreating for all this year, has now left for good. He's not going to come back and not going to trouble you anymore." So, and then Marpa was very sad. My student, my best student, my son. And she didn't tell him, of course, that that was her plan, right? And then no matter how long he practiced, he was not able to gain any realization. Milarepa was not able to gain any realization how hard he had tried, how hard he practiced. And then Marpa, then suddenly the teacher suspected something. He asked, "Did you do something? Did you do some mistake, or like did my teacher, is there some forgery, right? Did you guys cheat me or something? Is there something? It seems very suspicious, because whenever I give the instruction, everybody has the realization. Nobody has such experience like you. What's the real thing?" And then Milarepa was very kind of scared and told him the truth. And then the teacher, I think his name is Ngo something. Basically, so the teacher was very, very, very scared. And then he was actually doing a very grand ceremony in his temple, and he stopped everything, and he decided to go to see Marpa. So he has about 50 something goats, right? So he brought all the goats with him to make offering to the Lama, to Marpa, and to say sorry. But when Milarepa and his teacher came to see Marpa, so that teacher is the student of Marpa. So when they went to see Marpa, Marpa saw Milarepa from far, And the moment Milarepa showed his face to Marpa, Marpa was so angry and he started to beat him. And Marpa's wife is very confused when he is not with you. When Milarepa is not nearby, you're always worried. But when he comes around, you beat him up and all that. Basically, so the teacher who, the Marpa student who was Milarepa's teacher for the last couple of months, so he begged, he said, sorry, I apologized, I didn't know that, I make a, this letter, false letter and everything. And now I make this offering to you, like 50 something goats. And Marpa counted the goats and said, there is one goat missing. And he said, the teacher said, yes, when I brought the goat from my village to your village, so it's basically takes like a couple of weeks. It was a long journey, and one goat actually broke his legs. So that one I left at home, and I came with only the 49 or 50 something. So one goat is missing basically. And Marpa was very angry, and he told him, take all the goats back and bring the one goat which has a broken leg. Bring that one together with all the goats. Basically, all the goats that you have, brought it here for the last couple of weeks. Bring it all back to your village, and now bring all the goats with the goat that has a broken leg and everything, and bring it to me. So this is, of course, again to purify his negativity. So basically, Marpa didn't give teaching to Milarepa for a very long time. He was subjected to lots of torture, suffering and all that. And so the significance of the story is that during all those times, Milarepa never had any ill thoughts, any negative thoughts towards his guru. And that is the significance of his practice. So no matter how much hardship he has to go through, no matter how ill the treatments seemed, no matter how negative they seem, Milarepa never had any suspicion or doubt towards his guru. And because of that, he was able to purify all of his negativity. And because of that, and afterwards, when he was ready, Marpa gave the teaching to Marpa. And then after that, Milarepa quickly gained realization. And of course, when all his negativities were purified, when his advanced form of negativities were purified, then Marpa was not like before. He was very nice, very kind to Milarepa, and to give him all the teachings, etc. So that's the summary of Milarepa's story. It's a very actually like this thick book, but I'm just like summarizing things. So basically, that's Milarepa. The gist of the story is that Milarepa never had any ill thoughts towards his guru, and because of that, the purity of the thought is what counts. And I think I told you before many times, a couple times before. So what the reality does not matter. So it may sound very opposite to what usually when we talk about Buddha Dharma, we always talk about, based on reality, right? But here, when we talk about Guru devotion, we are saying reality doesn't matter. So you have to listen to me carefully what I'm saying here. So what I'm saying is, of course, in other matters, reality does matter, right? In other things. But when it comes to Guru devotion, what the Guru doing is, whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's doesn't matter for you to gain realization, right? If you have the capability to see the Guru's action as a pure view, as a pure action, if you have the pure view of seeing your guru's action as something pure, then you will be able to reap the same benefit. So if you see the guru as a bodhisattva, you will receive the blessing of a bodhisattva. If you see the guru as a Buddha, you will receive the blessing of a Buddha. If you see the guru as someone equal as you, then you will not receive nothing, because equal cannot bless each other. And if you see your guru as something much lower, inferior than yourself, then you will just be wasting your time. So because this is the practice of devotion, and in practice of devotion, what is the reality of the phenomena, or the reality of the object doesn't matter. So there was the story of, I think whether I told you the story or not, I forgot. The story of one lady who was worshipping the bones of a dog, right? And she thought that is the relic of the Buddha, and because by doing that she was able to get realization. So it's like when you have in our day-to-day life, because this is an emotional matter, right? And emotions doesn't rely on reality, right? So devotion, faith and devotion is an emotional factor, and emotions does not rely on fact or reality. Usually our emotions come from what we think or what we feel they are, right? So a lot of time we have issues with people. A lot of time it's emotional issues, and emotional issues are nothing to do with the person that you are interacting with. Sometimes the person doesn't have any idea what you any negative thoughts or action towards you, but you think that that person is doing something harmful to you, and then you are suffering even that person does nothing, right? And the person has such a good intention and doing something very well to you, and you did not notice that, then you will never, if I have very good thoughts towards you, and if you never kind of have an idea of what my intentions are, what my good thoughts are towards you, then you will never feel that you will never be able to feel that I have good intentions towards you if I do not find a way to express my good thoughts to you. So, because devotion is an emotional matter, it does not rely on the reality of what things actually are. It depends on what your perception of the reality is. So there is the reality and there's the perception of reality. And emotions are based on perception of reality, not on reality itself. So if you perceive your guru as a Buddha, then your devotion will also be that of devotion to a Buddha, faith to a Buddha, and you will have that much of blessing, that much of purification, etc. If you perceive your guru as very inferior, very negative, and all that, then you, because of that perceived the perception of, based on the perception of the reality that you are conceiving, you will also have the similar benefits and blessing. So faith has nothing to do with what is real. Faith is based on the perception of the reality that you are conceiving. Oh, that's so. Yep, that's so. This is concludes today's teaching.
Okay, Rinpoche, we have a couple questions today.
Yes, yeah, sure.
I will read the first one. Rinpoche La, when we have a heavy karma and cannot gain realization, and on top of that, we do not have a strong guru devotion, what can we do to purify our heavy karma? Thank you, Rinpoche.
So many of you may be familiar with something called the Mondo practice, which is sometimes we translate as preliminary practice. Actually, it's more like a preparatory practice. In any case, this is to purify our negativities. So you see that in Milarepa's case, Marpa actually subjected him to lots of hardship and difficulties. Of course, Marpa has a lot of students and servant, and he can actually make anyone else build a house much quicker. And Marpa is not drunk normally, but he pretended to be drunk, and he gave like different instructions to Milarepa, everything. Basically, he's trying to he is trying to purify the negativities that the advanced form of negativities that Milarepa has. So you will see that even though the action, it seems the action itself seems nothing Dharma, nothing like a Dharma. Like building a house, bringing water, all these things doesn't seem like any Dharma activities, right? And then going to the teachers, attending the Dharma talk, then going to the student of Marpa to receive a transmission, initiation, and all that. This seems like a Dharma activity. But you will see that all those activities where it is kind of like when he went to receive the teaching without his teacher's consent, and when before his negativities were purified, whatever teaching that he kind of received, it was at that time it was of no avail. It was not able to. We cannot say the teaching that he received is not beneficial. It is beneficial, but it is of no avail at that time. It cannot unlock. It cannot unlock whatever is being locked at that time. And whatever the seemingly non-dharmic action, like building the house, bringing water, and putting up cutting the rock and all these things, even though they seem like non-dharmic activities, they were actually the one that actually purify his negativity. And so the external action itself does not count that much. So you will see that when he was working very hard, right, to build a house, he was with a pure mind. When he went to receive the teaching from his teacher, Marpa himself or Marpa's student, he has actually a twisted mind or like a dubious mind, because he know that he's kind of, his Marpa's wife and himself, they two kind of conspired to forge the letter from Marpa, and then basically this is cheating, right? So when the mind is twisted or the mind is wavering, then the practice does not work. When the mind is of one, concentrated and of solidified, then things work, right? Provided that it is in accordance with the Dharma, right? So this shows that the faith is the most important thing here. Now, when you have that, so you're like, I get it from your question, you're asking more of what kind of activities that we can do to purify our negativities. So for this, usually what we have something called the wonder practice. So in the wonder practice, we have we usually repeat 100,000 of all different kind of activities. So 100,000 refuge, like I take refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha, I take refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha. 100,000 refuge, 100,000 generating the bodhicitta. So basically refuge, bodhicitta, mandala offering, offerings of the water bowl, right? And then doing prostrations, then doing the 100 syllable mantra and visualization of the purification of your negativity. So these activities, okay, refuge, generating bodhicitta, mandala offering, water offering, prostration, and then 100, recitation of the 100-syllable mantra. So all these things were normally lamas will tell you to do a ngondo. So in ngondo, what we do is you do 100,000 of each of those activities: 100,000 refuge, 100,000 generation of bodhicitta, 100,000 mandala offering, 100,000, etc., etc. And so again, you have to be very careful. When you do the ngondo practice, right? Your mind should be of one. If you have a dubious mind, then it's just like Milarepa going, forging the Milarepa forging the letter and going to the student of Marpa to get a teaching, so that it will be of more effect. But if you have one, if your mind is solidified, and if you work hard with a solidified mind, not with a dubious mind, then if you engage in the Mondo practices of, as I mentioned earlier, those practices that will actually purify your negativities. So heavy karma will be purified through this method. And you said, what should I do when you have, when you are not able to see your guru in a in a good light, right? So you have negative thoughts towards your guru. What should I do? So it will be very difficult in the beginning, right? For example, if you have a very kind of a toxic relationship with your teacher, then it will be very difficult for you to kind of if you have experienced firsthand the negative activities of your teacher, then it will be very difficult to transmute all of that and to see your teacher in a good light. That will be very difficult. So, as I said a couple of times earlier, what we do first is we try to distance your relationship with your teacher for a certain amount of time. So instead of thinking of the person whom you have a toxic relationship with, so just try to ignore, don't think about it, just don't have any relationship with him for a certain amount of time. And for some time you don't have to think about him. So if you have only one teacher, and with that one teacher you have a toxic relationship, then you don't have to think of the teacher. You just think of Buddha, right? Just think of Buddha. Just pray to the Buddha. Don't pray to your teacher, whatever. So after some time, it may take months, years. After 2, 3, 4, 5 years, things will start to come down. And when those when that happens, then you can slightly try to see, okay, let's see. 5 years ago, I used to think so badly about this person. The very moment this person's face come into my mind, I become angry, I become stressed out, I lose my mind. Now 5 years later, I can handle it very much with the confidence. I am no longer like before. I'm no longer shaken. What this tells us is that our mind can change. What we believe to be solidly true, absolute true, it is not like that. 5 years ago, we have a very strong emotion about a certain person. Now I don't have it. That means the grip, the grasping of my mind has loosened, right? So whatever my mind thinks, what I'm thinking does not have to be absolutely true. So we talked about this much earlier. When we were kids, there are so many things that we used to love. We no longer love them anymore, right? There are so many things we like sweets and different kind of things. When we get older, some of them we still like, but some of them we don't like. So our mind is always changing, always evolving. So just because we think something doesn't mean it is the truth. So you have to apply that thought. Whatever idea, whatever perception you have of your teacher, or whatever that the person that you have a toxic relationship with, does not necessarily have to be absolutely the truth and the only truth and nothing but the truth. It doesn't have to be like that. So when you apply such thought, when you are able to think like this, that when you apply this technique of thinking, that what you think, right, what you believe, what you think, doesn't have to be the truth, the absolute truth, the only truth, nothing but the truth. It doesn't have to be like that. When you are able to apply this technique to your thoughts, your perception, then slowly your anger or your whatever negativities that you are having with that person will also become soluble. Like it will start to kind of become more flexible. Okay, and then it becomes soluble, and it becomes soluble means like when you put sugar sugar is very rough. When you put sugar in water, it just melts away, right? That means soluble. Like if you put coffee in the sugar in the water, when you put coffee in the water, it just melts away. So that means, yeah, meaning of soluble. So it just dissolves, right? So when you are able to apply this technique onto whatever person or idea or whatever ideology or whatever, then that ideology which you're holding so hard, right? Absolutely truth, then will start to dissolve.
Do we have time for a second question, Rinpoche?
Yeah, I think it's a quick one. Yeah.
Okay, I'll read that question. Prostrate to Rinpoche. Devotion is regardless of reality. Well, I think I'm just going to read how it's written. Can I understand it is equal to blindness? Would you please give more explanation around this? Thank you, Rinpoche.
So to become a Buddha, becoming a Buddha is to becoming the perfect version of yourself. So there's the physicality of it, the physical, the body, and then there is the mental aspect to perfect ourselves. Physically perfect, mentally perfect, right? And mentally also there's two aspects. One is the intellectual aspect of the mind, and the other is the emotional aspect of the mind. So to emotional aspect, developing the emotional aspect, we have bodhicitta, we have devotion, etc. And to develop the intelligence aspect of the mind, we have the wisdom-related practices such as emptiness, ultimate reality, the impermanence, etc., selflessness, etc. So when it comes to the development of emotion, development of perfecting our emotions, right? It is not based on reality. Okay. When it comes to developing our intelligence, intelligence aspect of the mind, then it's entirely based on reality. So many times we talk about Buddha Dharma, we always say, oh, Buddhism is based on fact, this and that, everything. So when we say those things, we are talking about the intelligent aspect of the mind, right? So the intelligent aspect of the mind should be based on reality. The emotional aspect of the mind doesn't necessarily have to be based on mentality, on reality. It is actually based on your perception of the reality. So there is the actual reality, and based on that actual reality, right, you have a perception of it. So reality itself can be quite relative, to be honest. To say, and in Buddhism, there is no absolute reality. When we talk about, if you study further in Buddha Dharma, we know that there is no absolute reality, no inherent reality, no absolute reality. So everything is relative. And based on that relative truth, right? Sometimes we call them ultimate truth, but it's even that ultimate truth is kind of relative. When it comes to the four schools of Buddhism, right? The way the ultimate truth is explained or perceived in the four schools of Buddhist philosophy, it's varied, it's different. So even the so-called ultimate truth is also relative to the person who is perceiving it. So basically what I'm saying is there is a reality and there's the perception of reality, right? Kind of two truths. And emotional development of our emotions, right, such as loving kindness, compassion, etc., is not based on actual reality, right? To love someone, that person doesn't really have to be a really good person. When you have affinity towards someone and somehow you can love that person, you can fall in love with that person, you can love that person, you can like that person, even if that person is a really bad person, you can still love the person. So loving someone has nothing to do with the actual reality of that person. So the person may not be a good person, but you have a perceived reality, perception that that person is somewhat good and is ticking all the it ticks all the notes on your checklist, and for that reason you love that person. So basically, when it clicks, you love that person. It doesn't really have to be based on truth itself. So when it comes to emotion, truth does not play any role, right? And but when it comes to intelligence, then truth is important. Okay, so your question says something. Your question is not very clear, but I mean, you said in devotion, the devotion to teacher is the. What did you say? Let me just read it again.
So the devotion, let me try to translate it. Devotion in the guru, regardless of reality, is
Yeah.
believing
Got it.
in the
Yeah.
guru blindly, right? Blindly.
Yeah. So devotion to the teacher, it does not rely on truth. So therefore, it's kind of like a blindness, right? That's the question. So it's not really kind of blindness in the sense that. So what you might think that devotion to teacher, the faith-related practices are a blind sort of practice. So you should not take it that way. So faith is not blind, but but it's not blind. Blind means you cannot see. So you perceive, you see. So what is reality? Reality is not relevant here. Let's just put it that way, okay? Reality is not relevant to faith, development of faith. Yeah. Reality is not relevant to development of faith. But your perception of the reality is very important. The person whom you have faith doesn't have to be a good person, but you need to have the perception that that is a good person in order to have guru devotion. If you believe the person is not knowledgeable, doesn't know any dharma, cannot teach me anything, if you don't have a valid perception of the person to whom you have a guru devotion, then you will not have guru devotion. But the person himself doesn't have to have that quality. So that's why it's important, very important, even before taking someone as your guru, you have to check very carefully whether that person has some the quality or not. Because once you check the person, then there isn't much room to kind of like budge. So therefore, it's important to check first. Yeah. Oh yeah. So this concludes everything, right?
Yes, no more questions.
Yeah. Thank you. So thank you for the thank you everyone. And this concludes the teaching. And this will be the last teaching. And I think we will not be able to meet until next year, which is just 1 week away or so. So I have an appointment next week, and then the week after that as well. So I think we will not be able to meet for 2 more weeks. But this concludes the teaching for this year, which is about to. So we had a very, I think we had a good year. So we will, and today is actually the Dakini Day, as well as the anniversary for Lama Tsongkhapa, which is the founder of the Gelupa tradition. one of the four schools of Buddhist lineages in Tibet. Yeah, so I think you have gathered in the center to do some practices. I can see that. So I really rejoice. And you can continue to engage in Dharma practice. Those of you who are not in the center, you can read books on Dharma, to maybe read stories on Lama Tsongkhapa, or etc. Yeah, so basically that would be it. And thank you very much once again. And wish you all have a great day. Now we will do the dedication. Kyewa di nyudo da lama sangye chugyo nen chowa chikyang male banke ye sala ge boran sho chancho semcho chenpo magye panama ge gyo che kewa nyamba meba kone kondo bewa sho Amen. Con Jung Gen Zoi Gen Zong Mo Loi Zoi Dai Bei Shai Lai Soi Woi De Men Zi De Jen Lord, Zion, joy, shine, Lord, so me, and I did a change in it, dear me, one boy, John, de moi moi de jamais de sein will no con jing gembe so kill no god lo so time be shabai lo so Lord, Zion, time,